I escaped the whirlwind of lifestyle inflation multiple times. I'm not saying it was easy. I was susceptible to it as most people are, but I was able to avoid it just enough so that it didn't ruin my life. And most importantly, it didn't keep me stuck in the wrong career. Can lifestyle inflation ruin your life? Yes, it can, in a similar way that debt can. Debt is just the symptom. Lifestyle inflation is the cause. It can mess with your life in a much more insidious way. It pretends to be your friend and only much later, at the worst time, reveals itself as an ugly parasite that is difficult to shake off. And this is how it works. This is Jack. After graduation, he gets his first job and earns $35,000. He lives with 2 roommates, pays $3 per bus ride to get to work. He even gets to save a couple $100 each month. After 3 years and a promotion, he now earns $50,000. Tired of his roommates, he finally moves out into a bachelor apartment, furnishes his place with IKEA. He buys himself a second-hand car, eats out with colleagues 3 times a week. He acquires a taste for certain brands, and his discretionary spending swells to $700 each month. Nothing left for savings? Where did all that money go? A few years later, he gets another offer from another company. He now earns $70,000. Nice. Time to celebrate. He buys himself that well-deserved designer watch. He also decides to move into that luxurious 2-bedroom apartment. He can afford it after all. His old car looks kind of crappy when parked next to all those BMWs and Audis, so he upgrades his car. Is that consumer debt? He squints his eyes at his credit card bills. Never mind, just ignore it. A salary raise is coming up soon anyway. Next, he gets another promotion which bumps his take-home pay up to $90K. Sweet. Instead of working 8 hours per day, it's now closer to 10 hours. But well, on most days that means eating out or takeout. He also feels he needs to enjoy life more and starts going on $5,000 trips 3 times a year. He looks at his apartment and decides that it needs a nicer sofa and goes and equips his entire home with Bang & Olufsen speakers. 10 years into his career, Jack is proud of his accomplishments, but he's getting tired of the drill. He's worked so hard these 10 years and now it's time to do work he loves. He wants to leave his job and change careers. But hold on, how is he going to finance that $8,000 per month lifestyle? Looking back at my time working in the financial industry, I saw a lot of this happening to my colleagues. Everyone around me was buying more and more stuff. Handbags costing $2,000 displayed on office tables, shiny cars in the parking lot, stories about people's extravagant trips to Europe making its way around the floor on Monday mornings. And yet, it sounded boring and uninspiring to me. My colleagues' faces looked dull and gray. Many people dreamed of leaving their jobs and doing something else, but they couldn't. They were chained to their lifestyle and possessions and couldn't break the cycle. The temptation was real, and had I given into the spending craze, I would not be making this video you're watching now today. I've arrived at a point where I knew what I wanted, or at least at that time I thought I did. I wanted out, change my career, pursue acting, start a business. What kind of business? That I didn't know at that time. Something that would later come back to bite me. A story for another time. And luckily for me, I was able to limit, if not completely avoid, lifestyle inflation. While other people were stuck, I felt free to leave. Let's now look deeper into this problem and talk about how lifestyle inflation prevents you from changing careers, how I avoided lifestyle inflation and how it helped me to become happier, and also look at the core of the problem. Why does it sound simple in theory but it's so hard to practice, and some tips that might help. How does lifestyle inflation prevent you from changing careers? Why is this such a big deal? Isn't it okay to spend money, especially when you can afford it? The key here is to afford it. Once you're used to a certain expensive lifestyle, it becomes very difficult to shake it off. And you'll need to work, choose jobs, make career decisions in a way so that you can continue to afford that lifestyle. Jack realizes that his job is unfulfilling. His career is not what he wants it to be. He's done his homework and knows that he now wants to become an interior designer. But that would require him to go back to school or at least do some kind of course. He needs around 1 to 2 years to reskill, gain some experiences, and while this costs money, the main currency is time. He needs time off from his job to change careers, and during that time he won't have any income. Unfortunately, there's not much saved up either. At the same time, he will still need to pay his $2,300 rent, his car lease, and it will be hard to stop eating out with friends 3 times a week. It's just so hard to downgrade. The question becomes, between career fulfillment and a pleasurable life, which is the priority? Should he pursue what fulfills him and downgrade his lifestyle, or keep his pleasurable lifestyle and let his happiness deteriorate along with an unfulfilling career? Sadly, it seems that the choice that most people make is in favor of maintaining their lifestyle. It's just the easier thing to do. Once you're trapped in the fangs of lifestyle inflation, it's difficult to escape. It is difficult to make independent career decisions. Whatever your wish and dream is, you will not go for it. You'll look at your account balance and at your bills, and these will ultimately rule over your career decisions. Notice an interesting opportunity in a different field that stirs up something in you, a chance to change your career and possibly your whole life, but it pays slightly less. So the answer will be no. Finally found out what kind of work it is that you love, you could work on for hours, not feeling bored, but it's something that doesn't pay anything in the beginning? Impossible. If you ever get to this point, you'll realize how money can become your master. How I avoided lifestyle inflation and how it helped me to become happier. I'm not above anyone when it comes to spending money. I too love buying stuff, eating out until this day. There was just something that I realized early enough that helped me to avoid inflating my lifestyle too much. I recognized early enough in my banking career that I didn't want to stay forever, and that one day I had to escape. I didn't know how and when at that time, but I knew that that day would come and I needed to be prepared. This is what happened in a nutshell. Over 5 years, I climbed the corporate ladder in the financial industry, went through 3 promotions, something like 5 or 6 salary increases, and a few nice rounds of bonus payments. At the peak of all of it, each time I got paid, at least $2,000 of my salary went straight into my savings account. When bonus payment came, instead of splurging on something crazy, I stashed away 100% of it. This is how my lifestyle looked like. After realizing that $1,800 was just too much to spend on an apartment for myself, I got a roommate and halved my housing expenses. I ate out a lot simply because there was no time for cooking, but I avoided fancy food except for special occasions. I shopped clothes only during sales and never bought designer stuff. I occasionally had my little stress-induced shopping spree, but it would never cause a meaningful bump in my expenses. I rarely accessorized with jewelry or watches, and going to the hair salon was a once-in-a-year thing for me. When possible, I didn't own a car. I chose to live closer to my workspace even if the rent was slightly more expensive so that I could use public transportation, and net would end up spending less. And even with all of this, I look back thinking, I could have saved even more. But at the end of my 5-year career, I had 0 debt and a nice stash of money saved up. How much? For now, I'll just say that it was enough to live off for 3 to 8 years, really, depending on where you live. But more about what happened after that in another video. Was I miserable living this kind of lifestyle? Not at all. Living frugally became one of my most important habits until this day. Instead of hanging out with friends who needed me to join their weekly fine dining habits, I enjoyed evenings of playing badminton or cooking at home and singing karaoke. I also learned to enjoy spending time in the library, as nerdy as it might sound. But most importantly, being free from lifestyle inflation gave me the freedom to pursue the things I wanted, including independent filmmaking and working on this YouTube channel. Over the years, I became a happier person. The core of the problem and some tips. In theory, it sounds easy. Just spend less. But why is it so hard to avoid lifestyle inflation? There are 3 problems. The first one is keeping up with the Joneses, something most of us are familiar with. The Joneses, however, are not necessarily your neighbors. Who cares about their neighbors nowadays? The Joneses are your friends, your family. They could even be acquaintances on social media. But mostly, people compare themselves to people in their own cohort. If so-and-so I went to college with is now able to afford ABC, then so should I. Your life, in contrast to theirs, is lacking something, especially if you compare your highlight reel to theirs. The second problem is a feeling of deserving something. You've worked hard. You need to compensate accordingly. You deserve that $120 sweater. You deserve that $50 dinner because you've worked your ass off. You should not deny yourself some small pleasures. The third problem is simply an adaptation effect. When you're living in a luxurious condo, it's almost impossible not to furnish it with the same level of luxury. It feels almost wrong to put a $30 IKEA table in your $3,000 per month condo, or decorate that space with things from the dollar shop. Once you've raised your standard to that kind of condo, you feel that things of the same quality should occupy that space. But how to avoid getting trapped in lifestyle inflation? What needs to change other than telling yourself to stop consuming? You need to fix things on a much more fundamental level. Here are some things that you can try. Number 1, change your environment and relationships. It takes too much willpower to change your spending habits when every day you spend time with people for whom a fun day means that you have to spend a couple $100s. Choose the right kind of company. Make friends and spend time with people who prioritize a fulfilling life over consuming stuff. Choose the right kind of partner, someone who is like-minded, more or less at least, in terms of spending habits and financial goals. Number 2, replace consumption with a worthwhile goal. Come up with a goal or a series of goals related to your career, finances, or life overall that are worth pursuing. That takes up so much time, focus, and energy and provides you with fulfillment with each step forward that you make that the urge to shop and spend dissipates. Every time I'm working wholeheartedly on something that matters to me, I notice that I spend less time and money on stuff. Number 3, have a simple personal financial strategy. This includes 3 very simple things. Always be clear about your financial position. Know how much you have in assets and debt, how much money is flowing in and out each month. Know where your money goes. Have a financial goal, no matter how small. That way, each time you say no to a purchase, each time you save money, you have a clear purpose for why you're doing it. Saving money isn't arbitrary, but you know how each $100 that you save can buy you a brighter future. Know your spending weaknesses and come up with small tactics to avoid overspending. Notice that you spontaneously order food every night. Have a stash of snacks ready to counter that. If you have an online shopping habit, make it a rule to leave things in the cart for 1 to 2 weeks to see if you really need it and even want it, or if it's just an impulse. Doing what you love and earning enough money does not always coincide. But if you keep your lifestyle in check, you will have a higher chance of pursuing things that are fulfilling to you. There are 2 effects that lead to this. The first effect is, if over the years you stash away that increase in income instead of upgrading your lifestyle, then you'll have the savings that allow you to take off time, reroute your career, and reskill. The second effect is, if your lifestyle costs you less, you won't feel pressure to take a job just because it pays more. You can go for the one that is more aligned with your career goals because you don't need as much money to keep on living your life. I've avoided lifestyle inflation early in my career, and that enabled me to do so many fulfilling and meaningful things. But buying stuff is so tempting, and each time my income increases and I feel the urge to hit the add to cart button, I try to remember how curbing my lifestyle in the past led me to this point. If this video was useful to you, then please hit the like button. And if you don't want to miss the next video, make sure to subscribe and also turn the notification bell on to all notifications so that YouTube will let you know once there's a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you again soon.